Once I had an issue with my students. I was talking for full 84 minutes and they couldn't hear me. This
Oh
No,
no.
it was recorded. The voice was recorded. They just weren't able to hear me, so they could rewatch the video because we recorded everything.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, at my uni, a lot of people didn't like to be recorded, so they refused. But I was on board because even to this day, it does help a lot of students.
Mhm.
Uh, I redid the slides. I kept fighting AI in the past few months, and yeah, they turned out I think way better than they used to be.
Mm, yeah.
Adding other graphs, no more hallucinations and whatnot. Sometimes I would get these random hallucinations, and I would tell you and correct it, but still, it's better in this way. We know what science is, something we have evidence for.
Mhm.
Yes. Why bio? It biology basically the science of living things. And obviously, those are rather diverse. It matters because, first of all, you're going to get scientific literacy, which you already have due to IB, but otherwise as well, you acquired it with painstaking work, let's face it. I mean, what you did in this semester, yeah, it was spot on. I propose from now on we should talk about which topics we're going to cover. You're going to get all the, obviously, you get all the materials in advance, and if you have the time, I would very much appreciate it if you were able to read through it. Obviously, there are primary books that are recommended by uni, and oftentimes I go beyond what is required by the books in order to give you a better understanding. But in the questions, I'm just going to ask for what is necessary for the entrance exam because that gives you a much deeper knowledge. And in the first year, well, you'll be doing just fine. My students who finished the first year right now, they keep calling me and telling me, dude, I finished all my exams. 30% actually dropped out. And I'm like, holy cow. Well, not my kids, but others, yeah, oftentimes in the first year, they don't really make it, not because they're bad, not because they're dumb, not because they don't study. They don't know how to manage their time and how to manage their lives. And this is a very important skill set. Yes, when you have time to prep. Because later on, future you will thank you for it. And I'm saying this out of experience and with all the love and respect and care I can muster. Because I've seen that whenever I prepare for the next academic year, my life is much easier. Be it I'm a student or I'm a teacher, it's much easier. It's much easier to work with such things, and you create your own tools to make your own life more efficient and efficiency is key. Now, you can ask your parents for pointers as well, because oftentimes they're much better at it than even your teachers in their 40s or in their 50s. Oftentimes, they waste away their time. Yeah, and time is our greatest asset. Americans say time is money. No, no, time is much more valuable than money. In Hungarian, we say, thank you for sacrificing the time. Ah, sacrifice. That's even more priceless. That's even more important. So yes, we have to use it as an asset, as efficient as we can. And there's no shame in using AI. There's no shame in getting help from AI. Having AI do your work on your behalf, that's a bit sketchy because it's going to show. And obviously taking notes and in other things, yeah, I think it's quite all right. Now, if you can, please create your own notes and after each session, send it my way, just to
Okay.
see. Okay, when you can, obviously it's not like why don't you or why do you, but if you send it by a Telegram, that's perfectly all right for me. I function on Telegram rather often. What is life? How would you define
Mhm.
it? How do you know
Life.
I'm alive?
Well, you have certain biological functions going on, like metabolism and
Oh, I wish I would have a more intense metabolism. Wow.
metabolism. I don't know. You
Yes,
have
yes, yes, metabolism's good.
um I would say breathing, but that not everyone does that. Not
No,
everything.
no. Oh, I can hold my breath and still be alive.
Yeah.
Ah, I have
You
cells.
yeah, you have cells, you grow. You
I wish.
Okay. So you at some point you grew.
I did. Yes.
And
And I responded to what you said. Yeah.
yeah, response to stimuli.
Yeah. And I
Hmm.
have a son.
Well, not everyone reproduces though. Not
Thank
every
God
living.
for that. Thank God for that. But they'd be able to.
Mhm.
But thank God they don't. Some people are like, you look at them and you know what? I'm kind of okay with a few things in this world. Yeah, I'm not that against it.
But
Yeah,
not
yeah.
everything living can reproduce, right?
They can actually,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, within their own species, yes. But there are certain animals that are cross species and they're unable to reproduce, or it's very unlikely for them to reproduce, but they may be able to. But yes, yes, everything living is able to procreate itself in some form. Yes.
But for example, if some kind of two animals cross, like the
Mhm.
Liger and Tygon, they can't reproduce anymore.
Yeah, they can't, the offspring might not be able to reproduce, but that doesn't really occur in nature. It's humans tinkering with it, isn't it?
Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, in nature, a tiger's going to find another tiger, get married, and have kids. Yeah, but yeah, otherwise, I don't know if a lion and a tiger would actually date. Yeah, I don't think there's the same. Yeah, but yeah, humans can really stretch the whole concept of species. That's very true. That's very true. The whole concept of species can be a rather interesting topic for debate. Perfect answer, by the way.
Mhm.
Levels levels of organization again, not that diffy. With characteristics of life, what my biology teacher made me remember that you exchange matter, energy, and information with your surroundings, and you're able to reproduce. Are you gonna? Not really. It depends when. Yeah, but the thing is these are the main characteristics of life, and that's how you can tell that something is alive. It will respond to stimulus in some form. Now, can a computer do with these things? Well, it's not a cellular organization, yes, but it can respond to stimuli. 3D printers can indeed, at some point, replicate themselves, but yeah, they don't grow and develop on their own. We shall see what will come of AI. In science fiction, they say, "Oh, AI is gonna this and that." I'm like, "Oh, we'll see." We'll see. Let's not be scared of fire or the spinning jenny. Yeah. Biological organization. Now, have you noticed when something's alive, it's highly organized? Yes.
Yes.
What do I need to maintain that level of organization?
Mm, well, depends on which part of the body, let's say. For like cells, you have compartmentalization.
Yes, yes. Spot on. Perfect, perfect. So it depends is the best possible question you can get, and then you give the reasoning for it depends. Spot on. Perfect. Yes. Yes, indeed. In order to maintain myself, I'm going to need energy. I get my energy from chemical bonds, right? And I change my bonds. I make new matter.
Monster
I
rehab.
consume. Yes, for example. Oh my God, I haven't had a monster all day. Wow.
All day,
Thank.
it's 10 a.m. Wow.
Yeah, that sounded like a proper alcoholic, but with monster. We're fighting our timetable now. We're creating it at the faculty, and I
Mhm.
usually bring in a few cans of Monster for the people making it because it's insanely demanding. Now we started using AI, which is free to use, but a lot of people are difficult. They're difficult on purpose. You can't really reason with them. When you want to make an agreement, you want to make a 50-50 agreement. I win some, I lose some, but 50-50 is the best deal you can make. Yeah, in diplomacy or anywhere else, because then you don't exploit anyone, but you do not surrender your own things either. It's a 50-50 thing. Now, many people are like, no, either it's their way or no way. And yeah, so we have to replace a few people who hold electives and who teach certain topics that otherwise would not be taught. So yeah, but it's manageable. It's manageable. It just sucks when you're doing something, yeah, for the sake of educating others. Then obviously You have to make compromise. Yeah, I mean, I do teach in several places, and I do have my private students as well. By the way, this year I only took on two private students. You're one of them because I decided I want people who actually do their thing and nothing else. Because I want the best possible results. But there were previous years where when I had several groups, we shall see what will happen. The bottom line is. Uh, when you make a deal with someone or when you work with someone, you have to make sure you probably support them if you
Yeah.
already agreed that you're going to. And that was kind of lame. I mean, no law holds them accountable. It's just not the right thing to do. But here's what it
Mhm.
is. Now, the self-organization requires energy input, matter input, output. And in order to maintain it, you need a constant source of energy. What is the source of energy on planet Earth? Mainly, where does all our
Sun?
energy come from? It comes from the sun. It is nuclear energy. Perfect, spot on, 10 out of 10. It gets converted into chemical bonds. Those get converted into other chemical bonds. And there's a whole kinetic time, thermodynamic, highly organized system we call life. Yes,
Mhm.
which we try to define and redefine over and over again. Now, certain properties may come about. Yes, there's always a hierarchy. Why do we try to understand life like this?
In like in hierarchies,
Hmm.
so we understand mm, why things function as they function.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, this is our understanding. It wasn't like, God said, this is the way you should understand this. No, it's our way to get to wrap our minds around what's going on. It's our own system. Yes.
Mhm.
It's not something that actually exists. It exists like that in our mind, with our common scientific knowledge accumulated over the ages, written knowledge, animated knowledge, or whatever. Yeah, it is what has come to. And we keep changing from generation to generation. We keep improving. We keep becoming better and better in our surroundings. I've recently talked to a friend of mine, and we established that kids these days, well, 20 somethings, they're not kids anymore, but to us they're kids because they could be our children. But you guys are far more responsible, far more aware, and far less self-destructive than we were. Some are less social, that's true, but when you make friends for life, and you easily bond with others over the common culture you've established online, in person. So it is indeed interesting, and it's not like certain generations are better or worse. Yeah, your generation focuses on health, and that's amazing. That's amazing because that will lead to healthier generations to come, and it's what all the previous generations have sacrificed themselves for. So yeah, it's always a leap forward. And these properties emerge because it's just far more beneficial. Yeah. Let's say if there was a blue man or a blue woman who would be absolutely desirable to have children with, to everyone. After a while, the blue properties in the population would increase. And if it were evolutionary beneficial, like these people don't get cancer, these people live longer, these people have some kind of special ability that helps them in their surroundings. Well, obviously, they're going to be far more common, right?
Mhm.
It's how evolution works. Now, how do we know these things? Well, we have a scientific way of it. First of all, that's odd. We observe something. Then, question, why? What? Then you form a hypothesis. What is the difference between a hypothesis and um, and a scientific theory? Because oftentimes, everyday people confuse the two.
Well, a hypothesis is something that you basically make up based on some kind of scientific evidence, and then you
Hmm.
test it if it's true. And scientific theory is something that has been tested multiple times, and it's confirmed. It has been confirmed multiple times that it's true. So,
Absolutely spot on. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And of course, if there's a relationship between things, you already know how to find that pattern, growth, light intensity. So we've pretty much established the differences. And a scientific law is something that is true, independent of my beliefs. Yes,
mhm.
gravity exists. I haven't really seen anyone jumping out of windows saying Newton was a liar. Splat. No, people kind of believe scientific laws and they obey them without questioning. With the theory of evolution, there's nothing better. It's not like biologists religiously saying, "Oh, the evolution is the only thing that may have existed." No, but there's no scientific evidence yet for anything better. That is the bottom line, and it's not something you cannot challenge with new evidence. In science, you should be able to challenge everything. You probably know the story of Semmelweis Ignaz, right? He told doctors to wash their hands because women are dying because they're dirty. Well, in the 19th century, a medical doctor by default was a gentleman and clean. They didn't know about bacteria. So, women at the time, they gave birth on the street instead of going into a clinic. Because in a clinic, there was a 75% certainty that they would die of an
Mhm.
infection. If they gave birth on the street, they were far more likely to survive. And of course, midwives became much more popular than doctors for giving birth.
Mhm.
Why? Because they would boil water and disinfect things to the best of their knowledge. Semmelweis was locked up in a nut house and was virtually murdered there. The Semmelweis effect is a known scientific phenomenon when someone discovers something obviously true and people deny it because it doesn't really resonate with the propaganda or the social construct of the time, despite the fact that it's true and it's obviously true because the evidence is overwhelming. And if you ask mothers, they would rather give birth on the street than in a clinic, then yes, they should disinfect their hands because it's what it is. So yeah, and now they named the university after him. But I wonder what will happen if a young doctor would step up and come up with something like this. I mean, there were things like that actually when younger doctors were in charge of a hospital because the older ones were at a conference, far less people died. Why do you think that was?
Because they were more, um, I don't know, more modern. They like had different views on things and
They had different views on things and they didn't have the experience. They
Mhm.
investigated everything because
Mhm.
they didn't know from routine which are the most common diseases. When
Yeah.
you have routine, you have this blind spot of assuming, oh, it's probably that, not something rare. And these people did all the tests because they had no idea what to expect in most cases. And because of that, far less people died. Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
so you have to judge the character of your caregiver, not necessarily their age, because we have a 75-year-old pediatrician. My son's pediatrician is that old, and she's an expert in her field, and she's very good. We're very satisfied with her. She does have an attitude of always telling the truth, which I love. Most mothers hate her because she's telling it as it is. It's like, your son's a fat fuck. Why are you feeding him sweets? Put him on a diet, give him more meat and fiber, take him to the gym. They were like, how dare you? Or a kid was taken in drunk, and the mother thought that he had an upset stomach. No, he was vomiting because he was that drunk. The lady sent the mother out, smacked the kid twice, and told him to drink less. So, yes. I mean, obviously, your behavior with patients is very important to be at their level because if they do not understand you, they won't do as they're told. And um, rule number one, everybody lies for some reason. They don't realize that you're there to help. They're there to protect their image and ego in front of a total stranger whose task is to help them get better.
Mhm.
So yes, just because I have a theory, it is not a law. It's a hunch, but I need evidence, as you said quite correctly. And obviously, how do I check if I'm right? How do I design an experiment? You already did this in IB. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you collect data? Already did this in IB perfectly. I've seen it. I revised it. No further questions. Homeostasis. Homeostasis is usually my topic. Negative feedback is the most common one in living creatures, yes? Oftentimes, teachers, when they get negative feedback, they take it personally. No, it's regulation. You have to accommodate these living beings to the best of your knowledge. Sometimes they're positive feedback. When giving birth, oxytocin contributes to contractions and helps little one pop out safely. So sometimes positive feedback is necessary, but it's quite rare amongst living organisms. Yes, I
Mhm.
mean, if I go to my if I go to my grandma's house, she would keep piling food in front of me because with the world wars and whatever, they experienced really bad things. When I said it was enough, they were like, "You don't like my cooking." I love your cooking, but please, it's too much. Well, yeah, it's a negative feedback, and some take it personally. It is not personal.
Mhm.
Sometimes enough is enough. Yes. Sometimes I need more in order to get this done. Afterwards, does oxytocin production maintain? No. After giving birth, hormonal changes drop.
Mhm.
Controls and biases during experiments. Not even gonna ask any questions here. I mean, you've tested your extracts, and I think you did more than most of your peers do in a lifetime, just between you and me. Yeah. Ice cream sales and draw. That's like both are higher in summer. Does this mean if you eat more ice cream, you're gonna drown?
No.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Or
Is
number
this
of
some kind of
pirates.
is this some kind of universal example? Because our teacher used the exact same example in our class.
Oh yeah, yeah, because it's more politically correct than talking about pirates. There's actually a website where you can find this. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It is. It is. This is the more politically correct version. There's also the number of pirates and global warming. As the number of pirates decreases, global warming increases. That's the one I use in scientific authorship, but for high schoolers and for college students, I go with this one because some people might take an offense at the fact that I said pirates because they will associate it with Somali people, and apparently the university is racist because of
Oh
pirates.
my God.
So some people are able to do that kind of mental gymnastics, and I'm like, ah. Usually in the first lesson, I tell them I will hold you accountable and I will hold you to the same standards as your Hungarian peers or anybody else. If you want to touch someone who's sick, you got to be good enough for that. Yeah, and when they get a passing grade, you know what? If I die, you can touch me. Draw something silly on my face. Yes, but obviously, I mean, getting a passing grade, that's indeed a feature on its own.
Mhm.
Now, can I test the hypothesis? Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. I'm going to have a question. I'm going to have a prediction, and I'm going to do experiments, and I'm going to log them as they are, not change the data. This is when scientific ethics comes into play. I try to teach that as well. Oddly enough, my kids do not doctor their data. They say, "I got these results. Why? Because of these reasons." And I accept it. Perfect. Yeah, you didn't lie. Because in other unis, I did see cases of people just uh, doing cosmetic changes to their data. Physically, they would use this liquid white away or whatever they got, and then they would rescan their data and Photoshop it. And I'm like, so much effort going into it instead of just telling me what's wrong, because I'm gonna notice if something's too nice and it cannot be that nice, people are gonna notice and question it. So no, no, we're gonna say it how it is, and then obviously we have to come up with reasoning if anything goes wrong. Always has to be a fair test. Yeah.
Mhm.
If I drink more coffee, will it increase my heart rate? Apparently, in my case, no. I I can say that without any. Usually it's around 65. If I drink a huge cup of Vietnamese coffee, I love Vietnamese instant coffee,
Hmm.
and the freshly ground kind. If I get ground coffee, it's gonna hurt. Why? Because it may have arthropods ground into it. Mm.
It may
So
hurt.
yeah, bugs might be also ground into pre-ground coffee,
Yeah.
and it can trigger an immune response. So some people just don't digest bugs that easily, or even shellfish.
Hmm.
And you have to be careful who you expose to those, because yeah, in certain kinds of treatments, for example, chitin, the outer shell of arthropods is used as a novel method in helping wounds heal. But first, you have to do an immunological assay if the person's going to have an adverse reaction to it. Our good friends, the Poles, they made the technology available. It helped a lot with burn victims or people who gave themselves an injection because they're irresponsible children, like my father. He gave himself an injection of painkillers. He could have went to the hospital where I used to work. I could name 35 people from the top of my head who would have administered it well. No, he got infected. He had to go into surgery, and then he needed this special treatment. It's difficult raising your parents, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially when they don't mind their health. I mean, obviously, he wants to provide for my sister and his grandchildren and whatnot, but um, we need him around. He needs to
Hmm.
understand that, and I'm trying to take care of myself as well. Because yeah,
Hmm.
are you able to sleep if you had coffee?
Yes.
Me too.
I don't really I don't know. I like coffee, but I don't really get the like it doesn't really do anything to me. I feel like it doesn't really do anything. Like if I drink a really strong short ristretto or something or two ristrettos, then I feel it. But if I just drink one latte, then I don't feel anything.
Yeah. I go the same way, but yeah, then I crack open a Monster, and then after the first sips, after the coffee, I hear heavy metal music in my brain, and then oh yeah. Then I step into the lecture hall and I see my kids opening their monsters too because they can see it. We're going to need this in order to be able to follow along. So please let me know when I need to pull back because yeah, feedback regulates. Yes,
Mhm.
I'm an addict for caffeine, but I also metabolize it remarkably quickly, and I think so do you. I think it's a genetic thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Some people they just smell coffee and they think about their hours all night. Others are perfectly accustomed to it.
They
Now,
think about what?
coffee, because in some people caffeine has extreme effects. These are the kind of people who appear in the news. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
2 energy drinks, then died. Yeah, but probably had a heart condition and probably shouldn't have abused caffeine.
Mhm.
So everything needs to be taken responsibly, and of course, diet, environment, dosage, time,
Mhm.
also when. It depends. So drink even coffee and energy drinks responsibly.
Yeah.
I might not drink anything today because it's a lovely day. I can just do my own little research. I can do my own little tests. I can teach my own students and talk about things I love. So yeah, it's
Mhm.
quite great. But in most people, the caffeine does increase heart rate.
Mhm.
But it's a multivariable thing. Yes.
Mhm.
Because it depends on the size of the person and their genetic background. Some have a gene that breaks down caffeine rather quickly and they can have 7 or 8 coffees a day without an issue. Others, who are
Mhm.
more susceptible to the effects, probably should have just one coffee and they should only have a sip throughout the day and consume it slowly. And that's the way you use these things responsibly.
Yeah.
And of course, sleep exercise also contribute to it greatly because the bigger your muscle mass is, the better your metabolism turns out.
Yes.
So I don't want to lose fat. I want to gain muscle. That's the bottom line because that is how you change your composition. There's several types of graphs we use. I usually prefer a histogram with grades because let's face it, my students are living beings, and usually I get a graph like that. I don't have any students who don't study. That's what I noticed at my university. That's usually a Gaussian curve. However, at Alta, I would have two of those curves. One used to have a little peak of students who didn't study much, and the other peak was students who studied quite a lot.
Mhm.
And obviously, the cross section would be around a 3 out of 5. Here, it's different. Here, I usually have 3.5 in the middle and less than 20% who fail on the first go.
Okay.
Why? Because they're motivated. And what's the motivation I give them? It's the motivation I can give you too as well. Whatever you know, whatever you studied, whatever you've learned, doesn't matter what it is. But if it's linked to medicine somehow, it will save a human life. Be it communication, languages, medical English, physiology, biology, or chemistry, it may save a human life.
Mhm.
That's why we should study absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And they do it. They do it too. Now, obviously, we may have errors. There might be larger error bars. For example, in the case of my multiple choice questions, I may have a 7% error in measuring their true knowledge because I compared it with all exams. And in all exams, you're able to extract information better. Yes.
Hmm.
I'm writing a paper on that.
Oh,
Are
okay.
viruses alive?
No.
Perfect. Why?
Um, they do not metabolize.
Yep.
They don't have ribosomes, I think.
No, they do not. It's just bad news packed into protein. Yes.
Mhm.
Are they drivers of evolution, in your opinion?
Yes.
Absolutely. Some of our DNA is of viral origin.
Hmm.
We lost the ability to make vitamin C, for example, because our ancestors had an abundance of fruit around themselves.
Yes.
And then this genetic change actually led to the rise of the Sicilian mafia and Britain ruling the seas because they discovered that tart things, sour things would keep you from scurvy. They didn't know what scurvy was. It was just a
Mhm.
disease, and if you licked a few lemons, you ate a few lemons, you were fine. So they started supplying the Royal Navy with lemons, which they got from Sicily, which became a lucrative business. When the crop failed, those Sicilians moved to New York, and they did what.
Moved to New York.
Yeah, that's how
What
the
did
New York.
they moved to New York?
Yeah,
Okay.
they moved to New York because of opportunities. New York was a wonderful place of opportunities, and immigration, legal immigration, was possible. They would have their own
Hmm.
little communities, the Italians, the Irish, and everyone would. Yeah. Oddly enough, there
Okay.
was no Hungarian mafia in the US, or is it called Hollywood? I don't know. Yes, but it's rather interesting how a tiny little change in our genome leads ultimately to organized crime
Yeah.
for some reason. It's also called the butterfly effect. As a butterfly wags its wings, it may affect the outcome of various things. It doesn't always go like that, but once you're able to
Hmm.
see these relationships, well, that's multi-layer thinking. It's not just linear logic, but logic goes in many ways, like the roots of a tree, and then it also has layers in those. So it's going to be a three-dimensional shape as a tree grows, and you'll be able to see the whole thing together, and you'll be able to think about why you think about it the way you think, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a programmer move. For that, you need at least 170 IQ, which isn't measurable
Mhm.
with most tests. But
Yeah.
that makes you a perfect candidate for being a medical doctor, because you have to see living beings like that. And this is why most people are not cut out to be medical doctors, or at least good medical doctors, because many people can learn mechanically and regurgitate it, but you actually understand these things,
Hmm.
and that helps.
Yeah.
And of course, structure and function, they go hand in hand. That is what defines living beings. If something looks like a hammer, it can probably be used like a hammer. Yes, and oftentimes, evolution helps you be more successful. If you're not that successful, your bloodline won't make it. Now, in
Hmm.
humans, the ideologies may do this. Many people support this and that extreme ideologies. Look, let's face it, people just want to live, and you should leave them live. That's my philosophy, but it is what it is. And as you
Hmm.
said quite correctly, everything comes from sunlight, and it takes on CO2. That CO2 has a dot on it because it's activated,
Hmm.
and virtually it gets fixed in the form of energy. Sugar gets consumed, and obviously turns into ATP. From ATP, it's going to be an energy source. But again, this is just a very short impression of the whole thing. We already talked about how DNA gets copied to RNA, which has regulatory functions and ultimately can lead to protein synthesis and influence the metabolism of a single cell or the entire organism. And obviously, these organelles are not like this in real life. This is just a universal representation of what's what and who's who.
Hmm.
Information gets stored in the DNA, but DNA isn't the only thing holding information. I mean, it's where the information is, but how it's being accessed is going to be highly influenced by the state of proteins that the DNA is linked around in eukaryotic organisms. So if it becomes a functional protein, it has to do with the surroundings. It gives a response to surroundings. And as you remember, acylation, methylation, demethylation, deacylation, and a number of other changes can easily influence the availability of that information.
Hmm.
So it's complex. It's complex. Changes, failures, defects are going to cause medical problems. And
Hmm.
oftentimes we don't know why and how. Getting old is also a disease.
Hmm.
And of course, energy matters across life. Obviously, energy gets used, energy gets fixed, and it's the full circle of life.
Hmm.
And of course, interactions are going to produce certain kinds of communication, which can and classically um, signal molecules were called hormones.
Hmm.
Nowadays, the line is a bit blurred, but classically, yes. For example, neurotransmitters are not hormones because they're much simpler. But hormones oftentimes travel through the blood and have a lasting effect.
Yes.
And of course, to these signals, our bodies are going to react to. There was a Hungarian guy who was really clumsy with mice. His name was Seje János. And he discovered that lab mice were afraid of him,
Hmm.
and it's because of stress. So he came up with the concept of stress. That son of a gun. Everyone was chill until he came along. He just called it something, and it was a remarkable discovery. It made him an instant celebrity, and it did make him rich through the tobacco industry.
Hmm.
He
So the word
participated.
stress, how did the word stress come up? He just made up, or
He just said that stress is basically how these poor little creatures react to him and react to being dropped.
hmm.
So that's a stress, and oftentimes we are stressed by our environments, and he actually got paid $50,000 at the time by the tobacco industry to say it's not tobacco, it's not the
Wow.
cigarettes, it's stress. That's
Wow.
what makes you sick. Yeah, but that wasn't a nice thing to do. It wasn't a moral. It wasn't illegal, but it wasn't a moral thing to do. Yeah. We know that cigarette smoking, excessive cigarette smoking especially, can cause a number of diseases, or any kind of pollutant for that matter. A lot of East Asian women who cook outside on an open fire, because of the fire, because of the smoke, they can contract various kinds of lung cancers, unfortunately. And it is a deadly disease. 85% of lifelong smokers die of some form of lung cancer. Others may not die of lung cancer, they may die of other associated diseases. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying don't smoke at all, because if you want to try a good cigar, go for it. Yeah, you want to try a hookah, it's fine. Just don't make a habit out of it,
Yeah.
because it's not great. Same with alcohol or anything else. Yeah. And again, if I don't really require something physiologically, I should probably not make a habit of it. And now these papers are coming out about coffee being beneficial, coffee being bad. People are hooked on it, let's face it, and it's legal. But if you really want to increase your performance, both intellectually and physically, creatine monohydrate is the most studied supplement in that regard, and there's widespread evidence for its safety. With that being said, unless someone has kidney issues, then they should be careful.
Yeah.
Evolution is a cool theme. What is evolution?
Evolution is when mm, populations somehow evolve, change for the better. They
Change,
adapt.
change, they adapt. For better or worse, they adapt to their environment, and those who
Mhm.
adapt better to their environment, they get more offspring. Others, they don't make it oftentimes. And yes, this is why we have that unity, but also diversity of life. Yes, we have bacteria, plants, fungi who are already eukaryotes, animals, and humans. Humans are also part of the whole animal kingdom. Yeah, this changes. It changes quite frequently, the whole thing, because with new data, obviously new things come about. The three main domains are bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. We've talked about their functions, their cellular functions as well in great detail as well. And what changes classification all the time? Because classification keeps changing. When I was a student, it changed every 4 years. So what I've learned is no longer valid. What
Mhm.
changes it? Well, the symbol is right there. Molecular
DNA.
comparisons, DNA.
Oh.
Yes,
Mhm.
it's always molecular data. Now, again, as the ice cream or the pirate example signals, just because there's a pattern, we also have to check for cause and effect. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because if it has two legs and it walks, it might not be a chicken, it might be a human. But again, that's just philosophy. Why do we
Mhm.
have binomial names?
Binomial names.
Hmm?
Uh, Binomial names are what are binomial names?
Well, it's two name names. There was a guy who
Mhm.
came up with this. His name was Linné. He wanted to make sure to classify every living being he knows.
Mhm.
And he came up with this system. Basically, it was a way to tell which species is related to which. His method, looking at them. Oh, these two, they look similar, probably related.
Okay. Huh.
Nowadays, classification's different. We have a domain, Eukarya, kingdom, animals, Animalia. Phylum is Chordata, Chordata meaning they're vertebrae. Class Mammalia, mammals, all the primates. We are indeed primates. Does this mean we come from chimpanzees? No, it means we have common ancestry, those fuckers. Yeah.
Mhm.
People didn't understand the whole concept. I mean, Charles Darwin wasn't a knight of the Grail at all. Every new animal he discovered, he has also eaten. So, weird guy.
Mhm.
He also had 10 children with his first cousin. who were all somehow mentally challenged because of inbreeding. So it's kind of understandable he didn't have too many friends while he was still alive. It was difficult.
Mhm.
A lot of great scientists were difficult, but it's okay.
Mhm.
Family is Hominidae, which means human likes. Homo is the genus. Usually, when I used to teach in high school, boys in the back, they would be like, Homo. I mean, it's
Oh
their
my
right and privilege. And no, I agree. They should smile about it. I mean, they're boys. What are they gonna do?
God.
And Homo sapiens is our species, humans. It's
Mhm.
usually italics. When you write a species, it goes in italics. Always italics
Yes.
in written text, in type text.
Yeah. The amount of times I wrote the species of the tomatoes I use in the black walnut tree in my excellent essay in italics.
Feels like a nosebleed after I know. I know.
Yeah.
I've worked with various species of bacteria, and I've learned it when I was writing my thesis from my supervisor. Hey, did you know that species names go with italics? And I'm like, oh my God, you did teach that in the first year, but I completely forgot. And then I redid the whole thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
So good that you had to write an extended essay because it prepares you for academic writing. And that is a boon on its own. I mean, after I learned how to do academic writing to a certain degree, I was able to earn money with it, not from colleagues or friends, but through ads online, and yeah, helped me stay afloat. So every skill you have can be converted to value at some point,
Yeah.
and it can also save
Mhm.
lives
Yes.
because you'd be surprised to learn that a lot of ethnic Romanians they don't know how to write official documents. As Hungarian kids, our Romanian teacher was a bit tough on us to teach us how to do these well.
Hmm.
And oftentimes lawyers would come and see us to write a proper formal document. Because,
Lawyers.
yes, we had a lawyer at the hospital who was unable to write a request,
Wow.
an official request. Yes, yes.
Hmm.
Or I don't know, was he testing me? But oftentimes he would come downstairs and ask for help. Yes. For me, it was a culture shock, but I was like, yeah, why not?
Interesting.
Oh, yes, in Balkan countries, quite a few people make it into positions that uh, they're not cut out to
Yeah.
do, but they have the appropriate relations, and
Yeah.
it kind of shows. Oftentimes, if they're smart, they're going to surround themselves with people who actually know what's going on, and
Yeah.
then they don't mess up, and the system's able to function.
Mhm.
If they're not, then obviously everyone else pays the price, and they're
Yeah.
just being removed. So it is what it is. Levels of biological organization. Where do we draw the line for life? Right here. Omnicellula, cellula. Everything comes from the cell. Cell makes cells, basically.
What do you mean we draw the line there? I don't really understand.
Because an organelle is not alive, but a
Okay.
cell is
Oh, okay. Mm.
alive.
Okay.
Yes, because it has all the properties of a living being, and obviously it can then organize into many other things. Can bacteria self-organize into tissues and whatnot? They cannot. They will not. Why? They never had to. Usually, my teachers would say this is more evolved, the other one is less evolved because of complexity. What you can say is that this one's more complex, this one is less complex. That pretty much reflects reality, but more evolved, meaning is it more similar to me, the human, the crown of creation, the man in charge? Come on, man, the sun doesn't shine out of your own backside. A unicellular bacteria that lives on my window and has been living on my window for for the entire existence of mankind or planet Earth is perfectly evolved for those conditions. It doesn't need to do the things I do. Does it have a job? No, it doesn't have to show up for a job. It just sits there and lives. How amazing is that? And I have the audacity to call it less evolved than me. Doesn't pay rent, doesn't show up for a job. It's right there with his bacteria mates, just having fun and living. Yeah, how amazing is that? Obviously, I'm trying to use humor
Yeah.
to help things stick. And it does work, it does work. Because when you laugh, you feel more pleasant.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I had a few instances when young men, they would just remember the joke, not what I was trying to teach. They told me like 10 years after I taught them something about evolution, and I'm like, guys, that's that's so boy-like of you, and yeah, you can't feel just the sympathy and a kind of love for their ways. Yes, it's like, yeah, boys will be boys. It's okay. I love you lots. They're good people, by the way. They're quite capable, but not particularly interested in biology. I get it. I get it.
Mhm.
Now, once we derive predictions, we observe them and then analyze and revise.
Mhm.
But you already did this in your extended essay, so
Yeah.
yes. What happened here
Where
on those plates?
there's some kind of
There's
some
a
kind
there's a
of
pill.
material that makes something not grow.
Exactly. Very
This
good.
makes me remember the allochemicals I was writing about. Like
Very
anything
good.
around it is
It's an inhibitionary
yes.
zone. It doesn't allow bacteria to grow. I used to work with bacteria like that. We would divide the petri dish into 8 segments, and we would add a bit of antibiotic, pre-measured concentration of antibiotic to each and every one of them, and then we would just use a ruler and determine the inhibitory zone. That's how I would check the uh,
Mhm.
biotic effects of my new compounds. Worked well. Some of them worked well. Some of them were really toxic. And that's why they were very good at it, because it turns out they were toxic to eukaryotic cells as well. So what did I determine? My compounds are poison
Mhm.
to everything, and I'm working with them. So maybe I should be more careful.
Maybe a bit.
Maybe because I'm the first guy who is being tested on. What am I trying to teach you here? Whenever there's a new compound being tested, it's not being tested on in vitro. It's being tested on you if you're not careful. So
Yeah, okay.
always be cautious.
Mhm.
Wear gloves, wear protective gear. When leaving the lab, take off your gloves, throw them away to the appropriate place before using the bathroom. Wash your
Mhm.
hands, wash your face, use the bathroom, wash your hands.
Okay.
Before this especially applies to boys because um, I had a bachelor student who was under my supervision,
Mhm.
and he came back from the bathroom screaming.
Oh,
He had
why?
an allergic reaction to the compound he was working with. Well,
Oh,
your hands have thicker skin.
no.
Your privates as a boy may not.
Mhm.
He didn't use gloves and he didn't wash his hands.
Mhm.
We took him to the ER. The swelling went down in 3 days, but
3 days.
yeah,
Wow. That
yeah, yeah. I mean, he was afraid that he's gonna lose a part of his body that made him male symbolically. So
yeah.
yes, that's why I'm saying this story because usually guys are more difficult to convince that you need to stay clean.
Okay, okay.
And oddly enough, with little boys and with bigger boys, your pee-pee's gonna fall off if you don't. Works perfectly. The little man didn't want to take a bath, and I told him, It's gonna fall off if you don't. I was on the phone with my dad on Facebook and he was like, yes, I remember your dad not wanting to bathe, and we had to take him to the hospital to get it reattached. Immediately he undressed and jumped into the bath and was like, I'm bathing. I don't want to go to the hospital.
Oh.
And since then he's a cleanly little boy. Well, guess what? 20 somethings need the same kind of pedagogy.
Yeah.
With girls, it's not that difficult. They just don't want to smell. They don't like sticky things. Even the little guy nowadays, he doesn't like sticky things. So yeah, he's gonna wash up. Why?
Mhm.
To get rid of these buggers. Yeah.
Yeah.
With inductive reasoning, there are a few issues. With inductive reasoning, oh, that guy ate bread. That guy ate bread too. That guy also ate bread. Well, did one of them have cancer? Yeah,
Mhm.
bread causes cancer. Why? Everyone who ate bread had cancer. But is there a relationship? Well, you have to make sure there's cause and effect.
Mhm.
Because inductive reasoning works within its own frames, but you
Mhm.
have to be careful to establish cause and effect.
Yes.
It's just because there's a pattern, it doesn't mean there's a cause and effect.
Yeah.
In deductive reasoning, something's exposed to an antibiotic, and then they may become resistant. There's a prediction. And when you expose it again, oh, is it resistant? Then I have deduced. It's kind of like investigating, kind of like being a detective.
Yeah.
And you immediately establish cause and effect, and then you find evidence for it.
Mhm.
Both have their merit, but you have to establish limitations, and your variant preconceptions may play a powerful role in what you observe and what you do not.
Yes.
Because if let's say I would attract your attention to a pattern on people, you start observing it more and it becomes conscious more. Let's say how many people have black umbrellas, for example. If I tell you that most people have black umbrellas, you're going to look unconsciously look for people with black umbrellas,
Mhm.
even though it may not be true. So yes,
Mhm.
we have to be careful in our biases because as humans, we love patterns, we love stories, and it comforts us because it makes things comfortable, predictable, and safe.
Mhm.
The world and growth exists outside the comfort zone.
Mhm.
Now, with the hypotheses, no further questions. You did that. You
Yes.
did your predictions, experiment, and data. You didn't have to do field work. You could do it at home under lab conditions.
Mhm.
I heard someone was being your number one assistant.
Yes.
Dude, no, it's so great to see someone loving their kids this much. Yeah, that's amazing.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, it's not the most common thing. I mean, I get it. I fully get it. I understand it, and I think it's cute.
Mhm.
Does caffeine increase heart rate? It
Yes.
depends in whom, but
Depends.
it does. But it does. It does. I mean, yeah, same is true with salt in crisps. We did that experiment with the kids as well in physiology. And it turns out, yeah, in these big muscle men who had basically circulatory issues and bad sodium metabolism, heart rate and blood pressure increased dramatically. Oddly enough, in young ladies who were basically between 50 and 60 kilograms, they skipped breakfast. So when they had a portion of crisps, their blood pressure and heart rate actually dropped because they felt nourished and more comfortable.
Mhm.
So there's no universal recipe, and it depends on other variables and design. But yes, definitely. In some people more dramatically, in other people less.
Mhm.
And you need a control group always. And the control group has to be current and has to represent the group you're investigating. Because There has been a Japanese research group who did not do this. They actually used a control group from the 1950s in the study of bones. Turns out all of their results were bogus, and an Oxford research group found out. Basically, a few PhD students were doing a proper literature review, and they have found that there's something off with this. And then the
How did
three
they find
research
how did they find out?
I'm not sure. I think it had to do with the reproducibility of their findings because they were developing pharmaceuticals and drugs, and the
Mhm.
drugs didn't work. And they followed the science that these people published over 3 lifetimes. Basically, it was three researchers. One of them was the head of a medical university, the other a research department, and the third one worked for the government. And them being Japanese, well, after the paper was published in Nature, which is one of the highest impact journals, well, their entire life's work has turned out to be wrong because of bad science they've published.
Wow. Okay.
The way they dishonored themselves, one of them committed suicide, the other two disappeared forever, and they don't know where they are because of the shame. In Eastern Europe, especially in Romania, I don't know what would happen to them. I think, I don't know. I really don't know because I cannot predict it. Because we had a minister of education who was banned from publishing from Elsevier journals because of plagiarism. She couldn't publish there for 10 years, and she was responsible for education.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, what bothers me, oftentimes when I say things like that, people say, oh, I probably hate Romanians. No, it's the exact opposite. It angers me that people are being led by such hypocrites and downright bad people. I mean, you cannot compromise about the truth, especially in medical journals. And oddly enough, because of this whole concept of publish or perish, oftentimes the truth suffers. And what I've noticed at Semmelweis, these kinds of practices are unheard of. They do not doctor their papers. They publish them as they are, so it's much more difficult to publish anything that way. But whatever you publish can be used. Oddly enough, in the Soviet Union, in chemistry, if you published a paper and the yields were not correct and they were trying to apply it into industry, and it was your paper, you had dire consequences, if you like.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, and oddly enough, those papers from the 70s and the 80s, despite the fact that it was a goddamn dictatorial regime and it was awful, but
Mhm.
this little part was actually correct. Cause and effect. If you lie, you pay for it.
Yeah.
But oddly enough, the people who worked at universities, who were researchers, they had high respect, both financially and in their moral standing in front of their peers and in front of others. But oftentimes it was a widely closed environment. It was closed off from others. Now,
Mhm.
independent and dependent variables are very important. Heart rate, enzyme activity, fluorescence intensity can be controlled, and dose, temperature, nutrient level, drug exposure, these are independent. It's a factor that you deliberately changed, and the other one's the outcome. Or absorbance versus concentration. Yes, and you calibrate, and then you're going to see the mathematical relationship between the two. Now, you did this already with inhibition, and yes, I don't think I should teach you anything. I don't think I can teach you anything about that. There's also negative control. It should not produce the experimental effect because it's a control group. And this is something we always have, a control group. Why? Because if we made a mistake or something happened despite anything, it might happen that someone didn't wash those plates appropriately. Let's say I have a messy lab partner and I get all of his things in my spectrum. And obviously, that's a huge no-no.
Mhm.
I mean, my PhD supervisor had a colleague like that in France who seemed like kind of dumb, kind of on the dumb side, had a few basic papers published, and he got a doctorate. And he got the same doctorate as my supervisor did. And
Okay.
she was really pissed about it. She was really pissed about it because how can you say that someone published like 2 or 3 papers which were mediocre at best? How can you compare that to someone who do something fantastic and groundbreaking and give the same
Mhm.
result. So yeah, she was kind of pissed. It was a Moroccan guy.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter because still he was treated differently for being a guy, and my supervisor, she was a young lady from an Eastern European country.
Mhm.
It is what it is. It's
Is our negative controls basically just controls that it has
yeah,
no effect? Or
placebo, no enzyme, no antibody, no drug.
so,
Basically,
for example, in my
it's a blank.
experiment, if one of the petri dishes got only distilled water and no concentration of the euglone, it was the negative control.
It was the negative control. Yes,
Okay.
it had nothing in it.
And can we
Or
refer to it as only the control group, or is that
yeah,
on?
control is good enough. Well, control is kind of like lab slang, but it
Uh,
is. Or in spectrophotometry, we call it a blank.
yeah, yeah.
Placebos, do they work? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and even the opposite works as well. If I tell someone this is a poison, they're going to feel sick.
Mm-hmm.
Never tried it, but it did work. There's evidence for it. Or there's sham control. Yeah, ethically it can be sensitive, but uh, one of the girls I knew, she had a nervous breakdown, and they told her they're going to give her a drug that's going to make her feel better.
Mm-hmm.
They actually gave her an injection of saline solution, physiological solution into her arm, and
Mm-hmm.
then she felt amazing. She didn't know what it was, but she's like, yeah, I feel myself improved, and my joints don't hurt anymore, and yeah, it worked. But it's risky because if she would have found out, she could have sued the doctor, and the doctor would have gotten into a lot of trouble. But the doctor knew better. She
Mm-hmm.
knew her, and she knew what the issue was. It's difficult with people. And after treatment, obviously, the baseline will change somehow. Can you repeat it? If yes, then it's publishable. If no, keep it to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Can you randomize things properly? It's difficult to say because if I can't see the pattern, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's random. If I had access to it, it's no longer random because I don't have access to everyone. So I have to draw the limitations of my study.
Yeah.
And it has to be blind as well, so I don't know all the person or thing being treated doesn't know what it's being treated with, and if it works, then obviously researchers are going to know if it was the compound that did something or if it wasn't. A friend of mine has volunteered to clinical trials during his PhD stage because
Mm-hmm.
he had to. He got paid for it. He was in the control group because
Mm-hmm.
people are actually nice. And yeah, regarding scientific inquiry, evidence refines and confirms explanations.
Mm-hmm.
Science is always iterative. Just because I feel like it, or I bring about a bearded guy who claims to be a specialist, who's a doctor of chiropractic. Yes, they actually use that as a title, a chiropractor title. Basically, they're doing quackery to people, and people believe what they say about physiology, about nutrition, and other things. These people have YouTube channels and a cult following.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, what they're saying is not evidence-based. It's quackery, and they're usually selling something. They say the pharmaceutical industry is bad, and by chance, they have something really cheap that treats everything. From
Mm-hmm.
nostalgia to melancholy, everything. Don't believe them. You have to be able to replicate and
Yes.
reproduce everything. This is a huge issue in science. Oftentimes, people do an experiment and they publish. It's been a problem since the early 2000s. Sample size has to be big enough. 7 people said so is not a sample size. 150 maybe, even more, even better. My kid had to have a sample size of 500 people in order to be able to publish his thesis. Why? Because I asked him to. Obviously, I told
500
him.
people?
Yeah, yeah. I even sent his inquiry to politicians, and they answered. How do I know? Because they were a different category from our own students.
Mhm.
It had to do with meat consumption and are you aware of nitrites? They were.
Mhm.
And what was there any bias? Yeah, I mean, obviously we could mainly reach students at our faculty, but we were able to reach other demographics as well. But how does our inquiry reach them? Yeah, if you fill out a form, its representative status is sometimes questionable. Correlation doesn't prove causation. The ice cream and the pirate thingy kind of proves it. So yes, we have to make sure there's a cause and effect, and data collection has to be done with accuracy and precision. And obviously, with bacterial growth, you're going to have a plateau because they just can't fit anymore the petri dish. Line change over time, and graph interpretation needs to be correct. Check the axes, identify groups, and always specify what's what. But you
Mhm.
did that, so I don't have to tell you that. The slope oftentimes may be useful for correlation. You can only connect points when it's meaningful, when you know they're related, and the plateau shows there's a limiting factor or several limiting factors.
Mhm.
Bar graphs when you have discrete categories for grades, for example, and error bars are individual data points that can be shown. And I had that with grades as well. Body mass versus metabolic rate, and they may be outliers. Some people just remove these completely, and
Mhm.
they do not address the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
It has to be addressed. Why? Obviously, you can say why. These are outliers because of these reasons, but the trend is, and then you can formulate things. Our bars show uncertainty. Uh, with our multiple choice tests, it may be more than 7%. So
Mhm.
uh, usually, what I do with these quickly correctable questions, I give back the paper to them, I give them their percentage, and I ask them, would they like to revise the whole thing again? And then I allow them to correct it again.
Mhm.
And it yields usually better grades, but some people are satisfied with what they've got. But it's there to account for these error bars, which may come from bad wording or wrong way to address young adults.
Mhm.
I would want to push that downwards a little more, but they have a difficult time understanding scientific language sometimes.
In the
Linear,
picture, why are all the error bars the same length? Like because sometimes I've seen that one of them is longer than the other one side, or was that like incorrect?
it depends on sample size.
Okay.
It depends on sample size and variability.
Okay.
Obviously, if the standard deviation is not that much, yeah. Standard deviation may bring about basically the standard deviation can be great
Mhm.
in terms of students and how they study as well. It may be more than 14% in comparison to the average
Mhm.
or to the mean value. Usually, average and mean values, oddly enough, are the same. And from there, I can easily assess that I have assessed their knowledge relatively correctly.
Mhm.
It's just a cultural thing on how they interpret these things. Or uncertainty in their knowledge, not uncertainty in how we ask questions. That
Mhm.
7% may arise from there.
Mhm.
Now, linear and logarithmic, you probably remember this from PH as well. Nothing new here. And of course, statistical doesn't mean biological significance. Oftentimes, a lot of people publish statistical papers, but this is again uni-level science. I'm not sure if it's going to be interesting in the entrance exam, but it's interesting from a scientific perspective. The p-value doesn't necessarily mean that it's biologically significant. Yes. Biologically meaningful effect is going to show up as a change that matters for functions, health, or behavior, not just a low p-value, not just a probability. And the bigger the sample size, the more accurate you can be. But again, it depends how you formulate your questions and where you draw the line for your study.
Our biology teacher told us that the p-value for biology is always 0.05
Or less.
or less. Okay.
Otherwise, it's not significant.
Okay.
Yes, that's true. But again, in psychology and sociology, they have published a number of ideologically driven papers around the p-value. And a guy who actually does statistics for a living and is a scientist, he has written several books on how science is its own enemy because of the p-value alone. I mean, I can draw up a questionnaire that would prove me right because I ask the questions in a way that morally and verbally push you towards my opinion. It's like asking people about what they think about things and giving them 2 or 4 options. You can't really include everyone and you can play with their feelings quite effectively. Politicians do that all the time, and they
Mhm.
just do one measurement, one p-value. Oh my God, we are right. Let's slap each other on the butt. We're great.
Yeah.
Let's tell the people this is what you wanted, and most of the people are going to be angry because it's not true. Why? Because one measurement, one statistic is not enough. You need several statistics in order to find meaning and meaningful significance, like
Hmm.
in biology. This isn't always done. Poor quality articles just go with a p-value. Yeah, mold and bacteria growth. You remember the Mr. Fleming being the
Yes.
slow.
Hmm.
Is there inhibition? Yeah.
Hmm.
And how do you design an experiment? If it's a good design, you have clear answers. Did you do that? Yep.
Yes.
Theory, law, model. Again, obvious. And of course, a model is a simplified representation. You don't take into account things. Molecular models, climate models. A model doesn't necessarily describe reality. It's just for the sake of thinking about it, a good enough simplification. Yes, it's like when you're trying to explain trains to children, so you show them a video of trains. You don't necessarily take them on a train,
Hmm.
but they
Yeah.
prefer being on a train. Yes. Now, variables and control, you can have independent, dependent control variables, and you also said the control group, perfect, spot on. Uh, and obviously caffeine is quite a central thing, and you can give water or you can give a placebo. You might give decaf coffee, or there are other types of coffee products that taste like coffee, but will they produce the same effect? It turns out that a placebo may work on some people as well. It will get them more energized, and it may increase their heart rate as well. The sheer fact of believing that I had a coffee.
Mhm.
And obviously, there are various mathematical models as well. The scientific process isn't linear. Doing a PhD isn't linear. It's a difficult process, but we learn, revise, and iterate. That's what we do.
Yes.
And peer review is very important. In peer review, others evaluate, and then there's going to be a consensus. And you have to produce evidence. It's not going to be like, oh, I have a great name in science, so I'm right. No. I'm old and I have authority. I don't care. Do you have evidence? If no, then I'm sorry. You are wrong. Human subjects. It's a difficult topic. We had Mustache Dictator doing human experiments. Well, he's just a celebrity for the whole thing. We don't talk about the Japanese doing experiments on the Chinese, do we?
Mhm.
No.
No.
Nor the Americans doing experiments on the Japanese and the Italians, or Americans on Americans. or in Eastern Europe doing experiments on the local population, or Western Europe on orphan children. It's a mess. However, scientists decided that we need proper ethical treatment of both humans and animals, minimize suffering, report methods honestly, no fabrication, and don't report selectively like the media does. We're not the media, we're trying to present reality. We have to put into account benefit and harm. Should you be doing this? Let's say someone has cancer, they might opt out of chemotherapy because they don't want it, and they have a right to do so. So we have to inform them. Would you want to do chemo? Would you not? Would you prefer this? Would you prefer that? Give them the risks and the benefits. And some just won't do it and still live. Some will do it and still die. Uh, it's risky. But good science needs to be reliable both in methods and ethical conduct, because our main goal is to not cause harm
Mm-hmm.
and to mitigate harm if possible.
Yes.
Obviously, biological systems are going to reduce themselves to the
Mm-hmm.
best possible function. Many people don't have wisdom teeth because of this. Yeah, simpler, easier, and you don't need one. Why? Because we have dental care. Yeah, brushing your teeth, guess what? Maintains them. How
Yeah.
do we know? Well, there was a wonderful man, but I'm obviously joking about wonderful, named Mao Zedong, who did not wash his teeth and they all fell out and became green. Yeah, many people don't know this. In China, he's a saint to this day because of the propaganda that was behind him. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, awful for that. That was just one of his sins, not brushing his teeth. The other one is genocide of its own people. So yeah. First you observe, then you choose a method, then you generate data, you
Mm-hmm.
infer cautiously, build a mechanism, and then find evidence. And you're going to refine, and refine until it makes perfect. And I'm not going to go into microscopy. I think you did quite a bit of that in school. However, it does show quite a few methods and model organisms that we usually do. Feedback, thermal regulation, glucose, positive, negative feedback, and so on and so forth. Uh, Diagnostics and sensitivity and specificity. However, these I don't think are going to be that important. If you go through this, it's going to be
Yeah.
more than enough, because I think you already did this in IB, and of
Yes.
course no path overload, and yes, it does synthesize all of these things. I think this is a really long lecture, and I don't want to take you through the whole thing, because I want to move on to the second topic as well, so we'd be able
Okay.
to do enough today if it's okay by you.
Okay.
And basically, it's going to be just a tad bit about water and pH and buffers.
Yes.
But again, in a nutshell, because we're going to study that in greater detail um, in chemistry as well. I think it's fairly important to have a good general idea of what it is, and what does it, why is it so important? Because everything happens within water. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yes.
and it's a tad bit of uni biochem. Oh, it took me such a long time to convince AI that water should be turned in the appropriate position, and it still didn't. The hydrogen side of water turns towards chlorine, and the oxygen side of water is going to turn towards sodium ions because of the relative positive and relative negative values. And it just fails and fails over and over again to properly generate it. And I cannot convince ChemDraw either to do it. In some slides, I was successful. In this one, not as much. The most important buffering system that keeps our pH intact is the bicarbonate buffer system in our blood. And oftentimes people dope with taking sodium bicarbonate in order to increase their alkali reserve. We know the major characteristics of life and biological organization. And yes, we are aware of those. And in this case, we just want to be aware of water. Why does it matter so much? We're mostly made of water. Younger people, more water. Older people, less. Or fatter people are made of more fat than, well, not more fat than water, but far greater content as such. And of course, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur, they are the main components we're made up of and made up of atoms. We have covalent bonding because of high electronegativity, but not that far from one another. These are fairly strong bonds. Water has polar bonds, hydrogen non-polar bonds, and in the case of water, there's two electron pairs. This one's not necessary. There's just two non-bound electron pairs, and there's an unequal sharing. The electrons are being drawn more towards the oxygen because of the difference in electronegativity, and this contributes to the special functions of water. It's a polar compound. The relatively negative side comes from the electron pairs being present in oxygen. This is the relatively negative, relatively positive side. This is why the towards negatively charged ions, the relatively positive sides are going to be attracted to, while in the case of positive ions, the relatively negative sides are going to be more attracted to. And of course, salt draws water, ions draw water. Yes, hydrogen bonding is a very powerful linking force between them because of this dipole moment. And because of that dipole moment, obviously, water doesn't behave like other compounds. Between and within molecules, hydrogen bonding is going to be a powerful interaction. Cohesion, adhesion is quite a powerful trait because of cohesion and adhesion. Continuous water columns can be maintained. Surface tension is going to allow insects to walk on it. It's going to have a high specific heat, and as we sweat, that evaporation is going to cool us down, and it will expand upon freezing, so ice will float on water. Yeah. And fish are quite lucky because lakes don't freeze over completely. So they're able to exist in 4-degree water throughout the winter. Well, back in the day when we used to have winter, nowadays, I don't know. Have you ever seen snow?
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Then you live in a good area. I mean, my son was, no, he actually did see snow. He did see snow every winter. But not as long as it used to. I mean, when I was a kid, we used to have snow so big that we would get lost in it. They would just cut paths in the snow so we'd be able to go to kindergarten. There was so much. Nowadays, not as much. So yeah, there's quite something to the climate change thing. I mean,
Mhm.
there are models describing it, and yes, to a lot of scientists, it is a lucrative thing. So there are extremes in that regard as well. Usually the truth is somewhere in between, and I don't think um, we're reacting to it in a good way. Now, polar and non-polar compounds. Oh my God, this one actually turned out well because the oxygens are more attracted. Water's a bit twisted, but it does have the two hydrogens as well. It's just showing it in uh, different ways because water also rotates around its own axis. And usually the oxygen turns towards sodium and the hydrogen turns towards chlorine more and more. And it will form a network of these hydrated ions and water particles. And oil does not combine with water, and oil's hydrophobic. And the hydrophobic effect keeps non-water interacting parts away. pH is the power of hydrogen. The pH scale is true for 25 degrees, obviously, and you'll find everything here in a nutshell. Uh, Usually we just go with log, we don't add the 10, but the 10 is the correct way. Lower pH means higher hydrogen concentration, meaning more acidic,
Mhm.
and reverse. It ionizes itself, obviously, at 25 degrees. What happens to this value, the ion product of water, if I raise the temperature? Is it going to be more or less?
More.
More. Of course, because I add more kinetic energy to the whole thing and it's going to be more. Perfect. Dude, we're just doing revision. I'm not teaching you anything new, am I? Yeah, that's pretty awesome, actually. Yeah. Acids are going to protonate, bases are going to deprotonate, just following simple Bronsted-Lowry terms. Again, we're going to talk about this in greater detail in chemistry, but this is revision now. Weak acids, weak bases are still acids and bases, and they're going to produce hydronium ion. Hydronium is basically what? H plus, forming a bond with water,
Mhm.
maintaining a positive charge. And hydronium
Mhm.
should have another hydrogen there because it's H3O plus.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah.
Sometimes it twists the model and puts the hydrogen behind, but it's three of them. In the case of OH, obviously, it couldn't twist it in any direction to flatten it out. Well, but obviously, acids, H plus, yeah, just like that. In this case, I kind of liked it. And in this case, of course, OH minus. So
Yeah.
strong acids, strong bases, weak acids, weak bases. How well are they doing what they're supposed to? That is strength. Degree of ionization, not concentration. It's a logarithmic scale.
Yes.
So a unit of pH is tenfold change in concentration. Biologically relevant: stomach acid, skin surface, lysosome, urine. Urine is quite extended, yeah, from 4 to 8.9, or more or less, but yeah, you have to be careful. Pancreatic fluid, more basic. Cytosol, somewhere around 7. And of course, blood pH is going to be narrow, especially at atrial blood, 735, 745. Buffers, lungs, and kidneys are going to maintain this range. It's very important. Buffers keep pH constant, bottom line, and they have a finite capacity, hence supplementing with bicarbonate if you're a runner. Yeah. The acetate buffer also can accept proton, can accept hydroxide. So it's going to keep the hydrogen ion concentration constant to an extent. And of course, various buffers have a capacity in which they're going to keep the pH more or less constant between a certain area. Beyond that, it changes dramatically. This is true for the acetate buffer as well. And of course, to quantify this, we use the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation. These
And
values,
what is this equation for? I don't quite
uh,
understand.
this is for determining the pH of a buffer. If it's
Okay.
built around a weak acid, then the pK value will be used. If it's based around a weak base, pKb values are going to be used. Yes, and it will keep the pH values between certain values according to the level of ionized and unionized weak electrolyte concentration. The Henderson-Hasselbalch, it's kind of sort of uni material. They don't really teach it in colleges, but I do, because in the first year of biochemistry and in the first year of chemistry, my friends and colleagues are going to assume, oh, you already did this before, and you may have not. So yes. Uh, we're going to talk about it in greater detail in chemistry. For now, what you need to know is that the pH of a buffer is going to be defined by the ionization constant logarithm of the weak electrolyte that it's made from, be it a weak acid or be it a weak base, and its ionized and unionized forms concentration. If this is 1, or the A minus and the HA are the same, then that's going to be the 10th logarithm of 1. Now,
Uh-huh.
the logarithm of 1 is usually how much?
Zero.
It's 0. So if these two concentrations are the same, pKa is going to be the only
Mhm.
thing basically having an effect on the pH, which in the case of acetic acid is going to be 4.76.
Yes.
Because its Ka value is 1.75 times 10 to the minus 4,
Hmm.
if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. The bicarbonate buffer system is also fairly important. The bicarbonate ion basically allows our lungs to regulate pH. It's genius. You just breathe out the carbon dioxide and pH maintains itself. Now, this is quick regulation. Long-term regulation occurs because kidneys are going to reabsorb bicarbonate and secrete hydrogen ions. It's slow, but it's long-term regulation of pH. And this bicarbonate is also known as the alkali reserve, in Hungarian alkali tartalék. It's
Hmm.
very important, and oftentimes runners use it. They take pills of sodium bicarbonate in order to have an extended bicarbonate buffer. Does it work? Evidence is scarce. Some people say it does, some people say it doesn't, but it's usually investigated by questionnaires, or it's usually investigated by time they have run. It's not that accurate. Phosphate and protein buffers also do their thing. Accepting a proton or accepting an OH is going to maintain basically hydrogen ion concentration constant. Here you see the example of histidine, but it could have been any other amino acid whatsoever, and hemoglobin also has a powerful buffer effect. Proteins may also ionize and protonate and deprotonate. This changes their folding, their 3D structure and function. This is why you have to be careful to keep proteins and enzymes in a pH optimum. Hence, we have buffer systems at play. And of course, denaturation may also occur if pH is too high or too low, meaning it loses its structure and function. But a little bit of protonation, a little bit of deprotonation may just change the three-dimensional structure slightly. Enzyme activity depends on pH because if the active site isn't open, the enzyme won't work. However, optimal pH varies from protein to protein. Where do you find pepsin?
Pepsin.
Mhm.
Uh,
Well, since it has a low pH like that, which organ has such an acidic pH?
acidic pH. Which organ? The liver?
Oh no,
No?
the liver is basically a huge gland. The stomach, the inside of the
Oh
stomach
yes,
has
that's that. Yeah, that's what I meant. I have no idea why I said liver.
close.
I
I think
I
you
don't know
were
why I
still
meant that.
thinking about alcoholics, and when it's alcoholics, it's the liver.
Yeah, I meant the stomach. I don't know why I said the liver.
Of course it is. Of course it is, and it breaks down proteins. Cytosolic enzymes, that's an umbrella term, and trypsin comes from the pancreas, and it has a basic pH because the pancreas uses bicarbonate to neutralize stomach content as it moves along.
Mhm.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
Blood pH has to be maintained. Acidosis, alkalosis, big problem because it can interfere with oxygen transport, enzyme activity, protein function, and life itself. It's tightly regulated because of that respiratory acid-based disturbances Hyperventilation may have acidemia or alkalemia effects. Hyperventilation may cause people to faint because of mild alkalemia. Alka meaning basic emia present in blood. Yes?
Mild alkalemia.
Mm-hmm. You hyperventilate, CO2 levels drop, oxygen levels rise, you're going to start feeling dizzy and drop. Have you ever tried that? Please don't try
No.
that. I had boys who tried it for fun. I was teaching them physiology.
Yeah, I know people like that as well.
Don't.
One of my friends did that. Like he started hyperventilating or something, and then he just like fell.
That's dangerous. That's
Yeah.
dangerous. Usually we're being told that high blood pressure is dangerous. It is. But so is low blood pressure. Why? Because you can faint, hit your head, and God knows what. Yeah. Now, metabolic acidosis might be more dangerous because obstructive may mean that something's wrong. You make part for the air and the patient's okay. But metabolic can be deadly. You can easily measure this. You can easily measure this, and your lungs and kidneys will push back. The renal tubules are going to respond to acid-base state by adjusting excretion. Yes, because there's going to be a sensory response, and the renal response is going to be quite powerful. Yes, it's going to compensate by adjusting. Now, you're going to read this in the ER. This is going to be the blood gas report. Is this going to be taught to you in the first year? Yes, this is first year material, not necessarily closely related already to the entrance exam. But if you have knowledge about this, they're going to love you for it. Now, PA means partial pressure of carbon dioxide, 56 millimeters mercury. And you see the normal values. What does this mean? A relatively higher level of carbon dioxide, meaning respiratory acidosis. Yes, it's not compensated or partially compensated. pH, if it's low, bicarbonate, if it's low, it's metabolic acidosis. And usually, what does the patient do? The patient might be unconscious and have this gasping breathing. Yes. Metabolic alkalosis may occur due to hyperventilation. When someone hyperventilates due to emotional stress, emotional response. Have you seen this in American films? They give them a bag to breathe into a bag, and then they turn
Yes,
back to
yes, yes.
normal.
I have.
It works. It works. Why? Because it raises carbon dioxide levels. Hyperventilation is no longer an issue, and alkalosis comes back to normal. Now, obviously, if it's respiratory, then pH, low CO2 increases, and there's no change in bicarbonate. So it's hyperventilation, CO2 retention. You need to make sure the patient's breathing properly. Respiratory alkalosis, hyperventilation, CO2 loss, back, and that turn back to normal. A panic attack can be quite dangerous in this regard. If someone has a panic attack, what should they do? Because it can happen to everyone. Let's say you have a panic attack, God forbid.
Somehow control your breathing.
Control your breathing and focus on a point around you. It can be the doorknob, it can be a red dot, it can be anything. Just focus. One of my students has noticed, he's a paramedic, he's noticed that a lady's about to have a panic attack. So they started blasting music and he started dancing with the woman. The
Mm-hmm.
panic attack went away in about 3 minutes, and she was surprised that it went away. But it took her mind off of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, it's an invasive. And if this were to have happened in the US, he would have been sued. In Hungary, the lady was glad and thanked him because probably didn't touch her inappropriately and basically saved her from a bad experience. So yes, designing such experiments again, you have to know how to prepare buffers. Do you have to prepare buffers nowadays for experiments?
I don't think we have prepared buffers in
You don't
school.
have to. Usually you get it as a kit. Why? If you mess up, the whole experiment can go down the drain. Even in microbiology, you don't have to prepare growth mediums anymore. You can just order them, and it makes life much easier, believe me. A lot of people are missing these skills to use a balance scale, and what you guys know because you learn it in school. But nowadays, most of these things are automated in healthcare and in research as well. Why? Uh, because there's room for errors. If people are tired and overworked, they're going to make errors, and it's going to cost much more money preparing it yourself and making mistakes than ordering it. Just add water and keep going with your thing. Yeah.
Hmm.
And of course, we already covered these variables, and yes, we know what water is, what pH is, what buffers do, and why does it matter physiologically? We don't want to die. We want to compensate, and we have to intervene. What's the next step? That's what's important. Of course, quantitatively, we can easily assess all of these. The Anderson-Hasselbalch can easily tell us what the best buffering is. We can calculate hydrogen ion concentration in pH. We're going to do this in chemistry as well. And obviously, here's a few examples of how convert pH into hydrogen ion concentration, raise it to the appropriate power, or how do you turn concentration into pH given it's a strong electrolyte? You take its logarithm, and of course you can compare pH values, what happens to hydrogen ion concentration, because pH is logarithmic. A small shift can represent a lot of change in hydrogen ion concentration. That is the bottom line here. So if any kind of excessive production of acid or base occurs, this is why it's so deadly. A single change in pH, God knows what happens.
Hmm.
Now, of course, protonation state can be easily predicted from pK values. If it's how much is ionized, how much is unionized, and of course, if these values are big enough, then obviously it means it's a fairly strong acid. If they're small enough, it means a relatively weak acid, weak electrolyte. In a nutshell. Buffers may fail if there's an excessive amount of acid or base. They can no longer contain anything. Yes, small acid-base addition can mean a large pH jump, especially if it's really concentrated. So acidemia, alkalemia, we know that. Primary variable carbon dioxide partial pressure and bicarbonate values. If the carbon dioxide values are high, respiratory. If bicarbonate, metabolic. CO2 behaves like an acid, bicarbonate behaves like a base, form the Anderson-Hasselbalch, and other systems are going to move. Ventilation, vomiting, diarrhea, sepsis, kidney function may all interfere with this. Let's say someone drank too much, they may experience acidosis.
Yes.
They may experience dehydration. They may experience a lot of things. Let's say respiratory acidosis has occurred. Again, this is just for studying. It's not new material, just to help you understand more. And the rest of the slides are more or less for self-study. Usually, I at the end I add these and a bigger summary, so it can hold you by the hand and carry on the torch. So you have a pH of 7.28. Obviously, we have an issue. Shallow breathing after a sedative overdose. Bicarbonate value. Obviously, you don't have the normal values next to this. So hypoventilation means CO2 retention. More CO2 drives the reaction. H plus rises, pH falls.
Hmm.
If it's chronic or ongoing, kidneys are going to increase H plus secretion and reabsorb bicarbonate. So it's gonna be a slower compensation than ventilation. pH is low, CO2 level is high, bicarbonate is not that low. It's probably inadequate ventilation with CO2 retention. Why? Because the sedative affected what? What happens during a heroin overdose or a fentanyl overdose? What did George Floyd say?
I don't know.
I can't breathe.
Oh, that was him.
Was it because of the guy on him? Probably didn't help,
Hmm.
but mainly it's the fentanyl. It's a
Hmm.
powerful sedative, it's overdosed, and you can't breathe.
Hmm.
It can stop you from breathing. Yeah.
Hmm.
And there are quite a few other case studies. I'm not going to keep you for that long, but I advise you to try and go over these as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
Obviously, questions like this usually appear for nursing students, first year medical students,
Mhm.
but I want you to know these as well because it helps quite a lot. And these cases are going to help you understand more. Uh, Fire away with questions, please.
I don't think I have any for this class.
Well, obviously, it's been a
Yeah,
revision, so
yeah.
hopefully. Érthető volt, követhető
Igen,
volt?
igen, igen, ez
De
igen.
jókat is válaszoltál, szóval jó. Na, hol van, ennek örülök. Meg hogy érted azt is, hogy mi történik, miért van ez. Csak azt
Igen,
mondjuk nem volt honnan tudjad, hogy a fentanyl meg a heroin az ugye leállítja a
igen,
légzést. De most már fogod tudni,
igen,
sőt
igen.
ilyen van, látod, hogy ott fekszik, és rögtön fogod látni a vérgázakból, hogy mi van vele. És még csak odajött a mentő, és már mondod nekik, mit csinál. Azt hiszem nézni fognak. Jól van, drága. Holnap akkor vegyük a kémiát is egyes
Igen.
kettest így futólépésbe?
Mhm.
Jó, rendben. Szeretnéd esetleg, hogy iktassunk be még egy alkalmat a héten, vagy akkor maradjunk így, hogy vegyük újra kettessével? Hogy jó neked?
Így kettesével így jó, meg a héten nincs is időnk, mert anyuékkal megyünk, aztán csütörtökön hétfői
Ja, jó,
Franciába. Kirándulunk.
jó, oké. Jövő héten akkor maradjunk ugyanígy, hogy
Egyszer, de igen.
kedd és szerda. Jó, jó. Ha szeretnéd, akkor berakhatunk extra alkalmat, nekem most nem gond, mert nagyrészt vakáción vagyok, tehát akkor így csinálom a többi programom, meg körülbelül a 3 hét múlva fogunk majd hazamenni, de ez egy nap lesz, tehát arról is majd szólok jó előre. Ott is van internetet, hogy jó lesz, csak hogy megyünk a kis ember után, csak most még Kingának a kísérleteit, meg a műszereit kell összeszereljük, mert nyárára érkeznek meg ezek a dolgok. Jó? Beszéljétek majd meg, hogy jó nektek, meg majd akkor még beszélünk erről, hogy
Ja,
hogy szeretnéd, hogy akkor ne nulláról induljunk, hanem érjük magunkat utól, és akkor tudjuk befejezni az egészet. De
ja.
be fogjuk tudni szerintem mindenképpen, csak majd mindenhogy ugye beszéljétek meg, hogy neked is hogy van időd, meg kedved, meg hogy többieknek se akarok ugye kiránduló idő, meg egyébbe így ezzel beleszólni, jó?
Ja.
Majd megdumáljátok, rendben?
Oké, szép napot!
Imádjunk itt is, szép napot, szia!
Hello.